Catholic Faith, Lesson 18, Adam and Eve, our first parents. Our first parents were perfectly happy in paradise. If they had not sinned, they would never have died or suffered from sickness and sorrow. When the time came for their leaving the earth, they would have been taken body and soul to heaven. Who were the first man and woman? The first man and woman were Adam and Eve, the first parents of the whole human race. In the Bible, the first man's name is called Adam. This is a Hebrew name coming from the Hebrew word for ground. It was given by the author to the first man to indicate that there are material elements in man and that he is mortal by nature. The first woman's name is called Eve. This comes from a Hebrew word meaning life, and indicates that she was the mother of all the living, i.e., of all human beings. Therefore, the Bible teaches us that these two were our first parents. All of mankind makes up one great family. Sacred Scripture says that before the creation of Adam, there was no man to till the soil, and that Eve was the mother of all the living. Legends of many races tell of an original happiness and of a flood. All men have common bodily characteristics. The beat of the pulse, the temperature of the body, the physical structure, and even such faculties as the sense of smell, of sight, of hearing, all these vary little among different races. Differences are results of variations in climate, food, ways of living, and opportunity. Emotionally and intellectually, all races are the same. Researchers have discovered a universal sameness in ideas of right and wrong. There is a universal moral code, even among the most primitive of tribes. For example, all men consider wrong the murder of those who are not enemies, cruelty to children, incest, and irreverence. If the moral code were the result of fear of reprisal, why was not stealing considered wrong when committed against an enemy? Science suggests the origin of mankind from only one pair of ancestors. Religion declares it. What was the chief gift bestowed on Adam and Eve by God? The chief gift bestowed on Adam and Eve by God was sanctifying grace, which made them children of God and gave them the right to heaven. God created Adam and Eve in the state of innocence and holiness. This made them pleasing to God and full of love for Him. It made them children of God and therefore heirs of heaven. This state of innocence we term sanctifying grace. With wisdom and knowledge He, the Lord, fills them. Good and evil He shows them. He has set before them knowledge, a law of life as their inheritance. His majestic glory their eyes beheld, His glorious voice their ears heard. God's abiding grace made Adam and Eve so happy that their happiness almost equaled that of the angels. You have made him little less than angels, and crowned him with glory and honour. What other gifts were bestowed on Adam and Eve by God? The other gifts bestowed on Adam and Eve by God were happiness in the Garden of Paradise, great knowledge, control of the passions by reason, and freedom from suffering and death. The garden in which God put Adam and Eve was intended by the author to indicate all the divine blessings which they shared as a result of their friendship with God. One of these blessings, symbolized by the tree of life, was the gift of immortality. Although man by his very nature is mortal, God preserved our first parents from death because of His great love for them and their closeness to Him. God also gave Adam and Eve infused knowledge, that is, without experience or study, they knew all that full-grown persons needed to fulfill the purpose of their creation and as educators of men. Adam knew the indissolubility of marriage His insight helped him give suitable names to the animals. God blessed Adam and Eve with a freedom from subjection to their lower appetites, such as impurity, drunkenness, etc. They had no inclination to evil. They felt no shame even though they were naked in paradise. Lastly, God gave Adam and Eve freedom from bodily disease and death. Adam and Eve were created immortal and were made free from all subjection to sickness, which is the prelude to death. Had they been faithful to God, they would never have died nor suffered disease. Did our first parents have any obligations towards God? Yes. Our first parents had to acknowledge God as their Lord and Creator. Despite their happiness and privileges which God had given them, they were still only creatures. In the story of the sin of our first parents, the sacred author has indicated man's obligations to God by telling of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which Adam and Eve were forbidden to eat. The purpose behind this was to show that man could not do as he pleased. God wanted Adam as head and representative of the human race to merit heaven. This meant that he must not seek to be like God. He must recognize his creaturehood. In order to get this important truth across to his readers, the Hebrew author has told the story of the tree of knowledge. If Adam and Eve had been faithful to God, they would have passed without disease and without bodily death from their earthly paradise to heaven, God's home, where they would see him face to face. All the children of Adam, the entire human race, would have been born as Adam had been created, in a state of friendship with God and with all his gifts. If one had sinned, he would have been punished by God, but not being the head of the entire human race, he would not have passed on the stain to his descendants. Everybody would then have suffered for his own sins alone. Did Adam and Eve remain faithful to God? No. Adam and Eve, tempted by the devil and moved by pride, wished to be like God himself. This was their sin of disobedience. The author indicates this when he says that they ate of the forbidden fruit.